Good evening. Welcome. Namaste, everyone. Great to be with you. We have a lot to explore in the study of Upanishad this evening, and I think you'll find it really enjoyable because this evening we get more into the heart of what Upanishad's about, which is giving you a holistic vision, where we're not just stuck on one particular part or moving in a cycle that we feel maybe is limiting us, but rather seeing the full splendor of who we are in a larger sphere. So before we get into that, we'll first start by chanting Om mantra. We saw last week that Om is that sacred syllable that can help unite things and also give us that holistic vision. So in that example, Om was used as the means of indicating how the yajna takes place. So let us alight our minds on Om mantra as a group together. So just take a moment to get comfortable in your seat and then connect with your breath. We'll chant Om. 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 Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Bhararayanam Sutra Bhashakratau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Guruvatmeti Murtibheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyaptadehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvrishavahaihi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Now, let us also chant the Shanti Pata of this book, which we've been practicing. So you can follow along in the book and repeat after me. If you don't have the text in front of you, that's okay. You can just listen to the sound and then do your best to try to recreate it. So we've been saying that since Upanishad is written in mantra, they say that just chanting and hearing, feeling the vibration of the mantra itself is very purifying for the mind. So that's a sadhana in itself, just listening and chanting mantra. So let's do that together. Om Shanno Mitra
Om Shanno Mitra
Sham Varunaha
Shamvarunaha
Shanno Bhavatvaryama
Shamno Bhavatva Aryanam
Shanna Indra
Shamna Indro
Brahaspatihi
Brahaspatihi
Shanno Vishnu
Shamno Vishnu
Rurukramaha
Rurukramaha
Namo Brahmane
Namo Brahmane
Namaste Vayo
Namaste Vayo
Tvameva Pratyaksham
Tvameva Pratyaksham
Brahmasi
Brahmasi
Tvameva Pratyaksham
Tvameva prakyaksham
Brahma varishyami.
Brahma vadishyami
Ridam varishyami.
Ridam vadishyami
Satyam varishyami.
Satyam vadishyami
Tanmamavatu.
Tanma bhamatu
Tadvaktaramavatu.
Tadvaktara mavatu
Avatu mam.
Avatu mam
Avatu vaktaram.
Avatu vaktara
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Very good. So each time we chant that, you can think about it as entwining with those positive intentions and then also creating that atmosphere of peace, Shanti, around you. So we chant that 3 times. First, that we may get that holistic vision, discover the inner peace. Then that begins to blossom and manifest in our lives. And we start becoming a beacon of light as we respond to the world. Thereafter, we set good example. And that creates an environment much larger than what we're aware of. Peace be, peace be, peace be. So, what we were exploring last week, we closed with a big list of values, the Vedic values. But for us, we're not so much concerned with pushing values on you. Be good, be good, be good. And then having a struggle to be good and live up to those heights. Rather, in the study of Vedanta, we're more interested in you discovering the value of all values, meaning the inner light of awareness that you are, sometimes known as Shivam. You are true goodness. So when you discover that, naturally, values and their outer expression manifest. It becomes effortless. But sometimes hearing them the other way around, how a wise person acts, is useful too, because it creates a kind of awareness in us about maybe their internal state. So we saw what those were. If you make your way to the particular mantra that starts with Vritam cha swadhyaya pravachanam pravachane cha satyam cha swadhyaya pravachane cha. Try to find that in the book. This is where we'll begin. So there's 13 different values that were said, but one thing that was repeated again and again here was swadhyaya and pravachanam. There was an emphasis on swadhyaya, which means here it means study of the scripture. And then also pravachanam, share that. Share what you learn. A great insight came to me about this is that if you want to actually deepen your understanding of something or embody it, if you will, meaning that you become a living, breathing, walking example, is that whatever you learn, you can convert that by starting to share it, or at least convert it into some action. For example, maybe you picked up some magazine and there was something in there that inspired you, and you thought, oh, that's pretty interesting. I'd like to remember that, or I'd like to try to learn from that. Do something to convert what you just learned or read into an action. Maybe it's just simply taking a note. You just jot it down on pad and paper. That's useful. Or maybe you tell a friend, hey, guess what I learned today? It'd be kind of nice if I could live that out. So, just in the act of writing or speaking, converting what you're studying into an action, it goes a long way in becoming a vessel, a repository of all these values. So there was 13 here. They started with rhythm, the harmony. So we're talking about swadhyaya and pravachanam. So pravachanam means also sharing what you're learning. That's how we got here. So part of that sharing experience is that the more you share this, the more it becomes a part of you. So the first thing here was rhythm, harmony. Then satyam, truth. Tapas also means tapping your innate power. Then dhamma, Dhammaha means ability to manage your senses. May your senses be with your mind. And that's possible when you have what's known as shama, an inner resolve, a resolved mind. Then Agni. Agni means keep fire alive. Could be fire in the home, or it could also mean just keep the fire of your passion for study. Agnihotram, some form of yajna is needed. Then also, we're inspired to have a loving friendship and an openness towards guests or those who come to us unexpectedly. Atita. Then also have a loving relationship for all beings, manusham. That's the spirit of a yogi. We don't we don't have this idea of different classes or discriminate on gender or race or religion, these kind of things. That's called manusham. Have a humaneness. See what's common in us all. We're all human beings, so we can respect one another. Manusham. Then also praja, the value for uh, caring for children. So praja here means that you have children, or that if you come into a leadership role where your students or those who engage with good dialogue or practice, they also become your children in a way. Praja means keep that tradition alive. So that could be your family tradition, some of the important practices that you imbibed from your parents and grandparents, or it could mean the tradition that you follow in the yogic path. Then naturally swadhyaya and pravachanam. So it seems like a lot, but don't feel overwhelmed by that as a big list of things to do. You more focus on discovering your inner core self and getting a big vision. But these values were further distilled, and that's what's said in this next mantra. We're going to chant this together now. So from 13, we come to 3. This makes it easier too to assimilate what's being said there. What are those 3? So this starts with Satyam iti satyavacharati taraha in the book. So I'll chant it first just so you can hear it, and then you can repeat after me. Satyam iti satyavacharati taraha tapa iti tapo nitya paurushishtihi swadhyaya pravachane eveti nakau malgalyaha tadde tapas tadde tapaha. So you can repeat after me. Satyam iti
Satyamiti
satyavacharati taraha
Satyavacha Radhitaraha
tapa iti
Tapa iti
tapo nitya
Tapo Nityaha
paurushishtihi
Paurusishtihi
swadhyaya
Swadhyaya
pravachane
Pravachane
eveti
Eveti
nako madgalyaha
Nako Maudgalyaha
tadhe
Tadhi
tapastadhe
Tapah Tadhi
tapaha.
Tapaha. Same letters.
Yeah.
2 words. Yeah.
Yes. Tapaha dhi tapaha.
Yeah. Tadhi Tapaha. Tadhi
Yes.
Tapaha.
It
Tadhi
becomes
Tapaha.
tapasdhi. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What's said here? 3 distilled values. The first one is satyam, truth. Truth is a supreme value.
Mhm.
The second is tapas, meaning that that ability to create energy from within. And then lastly is swadhyaya and pravachan. So these are the 3. And it's said here that they're given by these 3 different rishis. Satyavajas, who's the son of Ratitara. Apparently, this particular rishi or sage took up just satyam, and he became that. Or Taponitya, that's the name. Taponitya was the son of Purushishti.
Mhm.
He
Sure.
took up tapas, and then Naka, the son of Mudgala, took up Swadhyaya and Pravachanam. So we're given some names here. That's really interesting. We're given some names of great ones who chose just to take up one. Yeah, just to take up one of these and really make it their own, which is powerful. It's inspiring to see that they're the names of those. Satyavachas, Tapodnitya, and Naka. Those are the names, or Naka. So the thing is, here's what's interesting. Truth is the most important, but how do you be honest? To do that, you have to have discipline. That's called tapas. But to have discipline, or to make that, to be devoted to that discipline, requires a vision. Swadhyaya and pravachanam. So if I had to give value in an order of the importance of this, I would say first get a vision. What is it that I'm really seeking? That's honestly, I would say, a grace when you find a person in your life who is actually living this and sharing it, the guru. So when you're really wanting to make a shift in your life, you have to find some mentorship. So swadhyaya, or that self-reflection, what it is that I'm seeking, or who is living that out, finding such a person or a vision, then creates that attitude in your mind where you are inspired to be disciplined. You're inspired to take charge of your life, tapas. Then you live that. That becomes your truth. So what is that vision like? That is described in an explosive way in this next mantra. So let's see this here. This is this in your book starts with aham vrikshasya reriva. Can everybody find that? Okay. Now, this particular mantra is special because here you can use this mantra for your daily repetition. So if you want to commit this to memory, I think that's a great idea. Because according to a master as luminous as Adi Shankaracharya himself, said that this mantra is for us to take up for repetition, especially before we study Upanishad. So I'll chant it first, and then we'll have a moment to repeat it together. Then we'll look into its meaning. Aham vrikshasya reriva kirti prashtham gireriva urdva pavitra vajaniva swamratamasmi dravenagum savarchasam sumedha amritokshitaha iti trashankur vedanu. So you can repeat after me. Aham vrikshasya reriva kirti prashtham gireriva urva pavitra vajaniva samratamasmi dravinagum savarchasam sumedha amritokshitaha iti trashankoh vedanu vachanam. Okay. Anuvachanam. This is the teaching of a very mysterious rishi. This rishi, his name is Trishanku. You see that? Trishankoho. Trishanku is the name of the rishi. So we don't know much about this particular rishi here in the book. But one thing that was shared with me from Pujya Swamiji is that this rishi apparently gave this anuvachanam, his teaching on truth, or that big vision we're talking about. in his mother's womb, it seems.
Oh,
That's interesting. We never thought
yeah.
that was possible. It expands your mind. Apparently, he gained enlightenment in his mother's womb, and then gave this teaching. So how? Don't ask me. I'm not sure.
Not our reality.
Yeah, but it's inspiring. Why is because in my understanding, it shows us that this vision, there's no time and place for it, meaning you are the timeless. You are the very truth of time. So that means that don't wait. When will I gain enlightenment? When will I reach? It's Nitya Siddhya. I is ever established, and that can never be lost. So it's an immediate knowing. And that's described with this first statement or first word that he uses, this baby rishi, aham. Do you see that? Aham. Aham means I.
And the
But see,
tree.
the thing is that when we think about I, we never pause there. I am. That's such a beautiful statement. I am. When you say that, just take a moment to say that right now. I am.
Aham. I am.
That's more than enough. That is everything. You don't have to do anything. I am. Just sit with that for a moment. The thing is, what we do is we say, I am, then we draw a line under that, and you fill that blank with so many things.
Predicate.
Yeah, we predicate that experience that's very intimate and immediate to you with many other things. And all of that in Upanishadic language could be compressed down to idam pratyaya, what you can objectify, what you can see, what you have. What you objectify, what you see, what you have is always incidental. It's fluffy. It can come and it can go. But who you are, or your being, or I am, is intrinsic. This teaching makes you see the truth of that. So we're using words, and yes, words are useful. Sometimes it's called philosophy, which can sometimes be translated as a love for words. But we're not just playing with the words in the sense that the rishi is trying to make you see what's underneath the words, which is you, I. So there's a presence that you are by which you can observe your mind, observe your senses, observe your body. Meaning you can tell when your body's healthy, when your body's falling ill. I see that. That's what you say. I am sick, meaning I am, and then the condition of your body. Those are two different things, but we never see that space. So this rishi begins with a kind of explosive expression, I would say bursting forth from his heart. How else do you describe this? Because these words sound a little funny when you just read them. If you look at the English translation of this, you'll feel maybe a little dizzy, or what's he saying? What happens is that when you come to that space of I am, which I would call the heart, and you stay with that for some time, you will burst forth in a kind of joy where you feel that you may need to get up and just dance because you start to recognize that so far I've been identifying with the different states of my mind and emotions, with the different experiences that I have around me, and seeking intimately love in them. But when you sit with I, you recognize it's the very source by which all love is possible, expressions of love. So what is said here? Aham vrakshasya reriva, kirti prishtam gireriva, urdva pavitra vajaniva sumartamasmi. The first thing that's said is, I am vrikshasya reriva. Rerivara means I am the very root of vriksha. Vriksha means a tree. I am the very root of the tree. That's what he says first. This is interesting because the tree is used as a metaphor to describe the universe. So this comes in Bhagavad Gita, and in other Upanishad, you'll find this mythical tree, it seems.
Mm.
Tree is an important symbol for us as an expression of truth because tree is it's describing the universe in a very organic way.
Mhm.
Sometimes science or other philosophy describes universe more like a machine, all these different parts that you can manipulate. But the Rishi never saw the universe like that. They saw it more like a tree, which is an organic whole. Tree is also unique because too, wherever you tap it, there the essence is there. So the essence is flowing throughout the whole tree. You can think of the tree and its branches and its leaves and flowers and fruit as an expression of its source at the root. So there, the root is indicative of the spirit, which is indicated by your intimate experience, aham. So this rishi says, aham vrikshasya reriva. I am the very root of the universe. I'm the very root of the creation. And at the same time, kirti prishtam gireriva. Kirti prishtam. Kirti means glory, or you can also say fame.
Yeah.
Here, the Rishi says, when I look at the root, when I discover the nature of who I am, I recognize that it seems to be situated maybe somewhere in my body or in my mind. But if you look a little deeper, you come to a silent space where you recognize that presence, which is indicated by I, is not bound by just my body or mind. Therefore, you start to feel that presence is never away from anything. That means the greatest glories in this universe are yours. This is indicated whenever we chant Gayatri. When we chant that mantra, we're saying that the same light that's shining through the sun is the same light that's shining through my eyes. Therefore, that presence that I am is the source of everything. So here, Kirti Prishtam Gireriva, he says that the Girehe means the mountain, that the very
Mhm.
peak of the mountain is also my glory too. I would say this is the real spirit of sharing.
Mhm.
When somebody has some excellence or you see some great achievement, you don't have to feel jealous anymore. You don't have to feel, oh, I could never be that great. That is your greatness. They are your own expression. So it's a really beautiful attitude. If you see somebody else who inspires you or somebody else doing something amazing, sometimes we get this really very peculiar feeling of maybe jealousy or um, or maybe depression. I couldn't achieve such greatness in my life. My time's coming to a close. I don't have that much time left. I'll never be able to accomplish that. They're your own expression. They are your own self manifesting. So you can appreciate that. And what's amazing is when you do that, you actually imbibe some of those qualities naturally. So kirti prishtam gireriva.
Mhm.
Gireriva, that means that mountain peak, the height. Prishtam. Urdhva pavitra vajaniva. He says, above, high and pure. That's my nature. Vajaniva, like the sun. So you're like that sun, shining. Su amritamasmi, and it's amrita. You are that immortal light, illuminating. So you're experiencing that field, your mental field, as the witness, Sakshi Bhava, meaning I see the conditions of my mind. I notice when my mind moves from a single point, a focus, and then I get distracted. But the thing is, we never come to recognize that to know that your mind was concentrated, to know that your mind became distracted, that requires an unchanging presence. Who is that? This nature is being said right now, your nature, the very root of the universe, the peak of all glories, and also the one who is ever luminous, Urdva Pavitro Vajaniva, like the sun, Su Amritamasmi. That I is never a thing. So it has no chance of disintegration or entropy. That's why Amritam, immortal. Dravinagum Savarchasam. And it's the source of all wealth. Dravinagum means richness or wealthness.
Well,
Yeah, Dravinagum. Suvarchasam, brilliance. Sumedha Amrado Krataha. Sumedha means that it is the intelligence. This
intellect.
here is touching on the principle of Chit Shakti, the very intelligence by which we can discern. Chitti Shakti iti Yoga Sutra. It's that final sutra. It's so powerful. In Yoga Sutra, it says Chitti Shakti iti, established in the power, the pure power of perception. Your mind gets established in that. It's so inspiring. Sumedha, that's what's meant by Sumedha. Amrataha, again, immortal, Amrata. Amrata also means nectar. Akshataha, undecaying. This is Iti Trishankur Veda Anuvachanam. This is Trishankuhu. This is Trishanku's Anuvachanam, his teaching. So practically, think on this. Swadhyaya means what you do is, the first thing is that you see what's happening in the human condition is that our mind has the tendency to become scattered, disturbed, or stupefied, dull. And that's because we're, and then that leads to feeling that we suffer practically. But that the thing is because we're not disciplined. And we haven't gained that discipline because we're not reflecting on a big vision of life. So the first thing that we need to do is that using our mind and seeing it as a precious instrument, we have to create a mind of light or a mind of spaciousness. Because one of the biggest sources of our suffering is that all of the stimulus that we're receiving, we're not processing it in a holistic way. So that just forces us to react all the time. So a life of reaction, we're making silly mistakes. And then, saying things, just a simple word can really change your whole life. Maybe you just shout back and then that was to your boss and then you get fired and then you change their whole course. So just one statement like that in a non-reflective mood could really change things. So the first thing is that when we take up a mantra like this, maybe before we're even looking into these import of the meaning, when you learn how to practice swadhyaya with a mantra, meaning you take up a mantra, even if it's just Om, it's so powerful. Take a deep breath in, chant the Om, then you pause. And that pause helps alight the mind on that space in between. Then you know what's going to come next. Om. So it gives you the chance to notice the movement of your mind and then guide it back to that single focus and then bring out the mantra. Not only that, but just the vibration of that is going to purify the inner world. So chanting that way is the first step. That's going to create a lot of ability to start noticing your mind. You are the witness, so you are that presence by which you can see the mind. Then that becomes more clear, and that will lead to a certain kind of absorption in the Atman, in that presence. So I'd say the first expression of why we're suffering is that reaction. So when you take up a mantra like this or another mantra that maybe your teacher taught you and you chant it, that's going to purify the mind and create that inner spaciousness. Secondly, we need to gain self-knowledge because we're not knowing what is the nature or who am I essentially? How is that done? Listening. Listen to these great statements. And that creates that kind of cognitive shift. Ooh, there's so many things happening in my life, but one thing seems to be the same. That's called a kandakara vritti. There's a new vritti or a cognitive shift in your mind where you start to recognize this object's different, that person's different, this is different, but something's common in all these experiences, and that is, I am there. It's a shifting of attention from nama rupa, to name and form, to existence or to self. So there, that self is not just my own personal ego, not my personality, but the purusha, or the person, the presence that's pervading all my experience. So that shifting of one's attention, I would say, is the spiritual vision of recognizing I am always there. Aham. So aham vrikshasya reriva kirti prashtham gireriva urva pavitra vajaniva samratam dravena gum savarchasam sumedha amrato kshataha iti trashankur vedanu. So very powerful. This inspires us. I am the root of the universe. My glory is high like the peak of a mountain. Above and pure am I, like the sun. Vajaniva, ever immortal. Su amratamasmi, dravinagam, the source of all richness, of all wealth. Suvarchasam, so brilliant. Sumeda, intelligent. Because what normally the words that we're using to predicate our experience is my mind's a little messed up. I'm feeling a little depressed today. I've got a headache. I'm not doing so great. I think I'm confused. I didn't understand the Vedanta lecture. Maybe I don't have the strength to do it. I'm not sure which practice to engage in. My guru gave me so many. This is how we're this is how we're using our language. Instead of thinking like this, think, I am immortal. My nature is brilliance. I am the light of all lights. I'm like the sun. That will change things in your life.
That's
Just
right.
thinking that. And then you'll think, but how is just thinking about it going to change it? That's true. Just thinking about being rich doesn't make my bank balance go up. But thinking that I am immortal does make you immortal. How is that? Because it's your nature. You can't lose it. So that thought will that thought is something like if the sun is always shining, but that sun seems to be eclipsed by a little cloud, just one little cloud in Kalamazoo can eclipse the sun from my experience, even though the sun is illuminating the whole galaxy. So just one little cloud. So what you do is you bring another little cloud, a thought. I am that ever pure sun. What happens is that thought will be something like another cloud that just pushes that little cloud out of the way. Then the real sun shines forth. So you bring that thought, aham vrikshasya reriva. I am the presence by which everything is bubbling up. I am that presence by which all glories are illumined. I am ever pure. I am like the sun. So you start thinking that way, in a positive way, and then seeing the truth of it, and it will remove all this confusion. So powerful.
Rather small mantra with profound meaning with few words.
Very true, Sarve. Very true. So if anyone does want help with this, or you want to memorize it, just reach out to me. I'd be happy to make a recording, or we can go through it together. And you can use it for your swadhyaya, for your self-study, and maybe take up that mantra in the morning or in the evening time before you study some scripture. Okay, let's continue. Now what we have, this first book is almost coming to a close. So here what we have is the Convocation address. it seems that the guru gathers all the students together and says, here's the essential teachings. Here's what we've looked at. What is it that you should really, really commit to? What is it that's essential in all this? So I'll chant this first, and then you can repeat after me. It's a little bit long, but then we'll break it apart, make it more digestible. Vedam anuchacharyo ante vasinam anushasti satyam vada dharmam chara swadhyaya anma pramadah acharyaya priyam dhanamahritya prajatantum ma vyavachetsehi satyana pramatitavyam dharmana pramatitavyam kushalana pramatitavyam bhutyena pramatitavyam swadhyaya pravachanabhyam na pramatitavyam. There's a really nice rhythm to it. Okay, let's chant it together.
Vedam.
Yes. Vedam anuchacharyo
Anuchacharya
antevasinam
Antevasinam
anushasti
Anushasti
satyam vada
Satyam Vada
dharmam chara
Dharmam Chara
swadhyaya anma
Swadhyaya Anma
pramadaha
Pramadaha
acharyaya
Acharyaya
priyam
Priyam
dhanamahritya
Dhanamahritya
prajatantum
Prajatantum
ma
Ma
vyavachetsehi
Vyavakshesihi
satyana
Satyana
pramatitavyam
Pramaditavyam
dharmana
Dharman
pramatitavyam
Pramaditavyam
kushalana
Kushalana
pramatitavyam
Pramaditavyam
bhutyena
Bhutyaina
pramatitavyam
Pramaditavyam
swadhyaya
Swadhyaya
pravachanabhyam
Pravachanabhyam
na pramatitavyam.
Na Pramaditavyam.
Good. Okay.
It's a beautiful mantra.
It is. I
Yeah.
agree. Vedam anucha. Having taught the Veda or having taught this instruction, Acharya, the teacher, to the Antevasinam. Antevasinam means the student. We saw there earlier, Antevasi means the live-in, one living in close proximity with the teacher.
Okay.
Why that? Just because when you live with somebody, then you really start shaping around them. And it gives you a chance to see them walking their talk. That's the meaning of the Acharya. So they're not just, sitting in their ochre robes, fluttering high on the stage or something, giving big sermons, but they're walking it, and they're eating with grace, and they're washing their face with grace, and doing some simple things like writing check, or going through the bank balance, or meeting with somebody who's having difficulty. So just to be able to witness that is a really profound thing. That's why Antevasi. So Anushasti, what does that Acharya prescribe? So Anushasti means this is what they're enjoining or saying you should do. What is that? Satyam vada. Always speak the truth. Yes. Let us work for that. When? Now. At all times. Satyam vada. There's no time and place. It's to be done anytime. Dharmam chara. You have to organize your thought and action for the long-term good. Dharmam chara. I'll explain dharmam a little bit more. So that can mean following the order or harmony, your inner calling. It can mean being aware of how your actions, their consequence. So more on that in a bit. Dharmam chara. Then also swadhyayama pramadaha. Also study of scripture.
Self-study.
Make it a lifelong practice. Then acharya priyam dhanamaharitya. Priyam dhanam means that what you earn, enjoy giving back in some way. Earn some wealth and then give it back. Priyam dhanam ahritya. Then also prajatantum vyavachetsi. Keep the traditional prajanam. Satya na pramatitavyam. So here we see na pramatitavyam. It says, don't deviate from satyam. Don't deviate from truth. Satyam na pramatitavyam. Dharma na pramatitavyam. Don't deviate from what is your calling. Kushala na pramatitavyam. Don't deviate from being effective and efficient in your action. That's important. Kushala means dexterity. So there's apparently some kind of very sharp grass called kusha grass. And traditionally that's used in puja. So a brahmachari has to pick that. But the thing is, you can't do it without some kind of training. You have to pick it in the right way, otherwise it can cut your fingers. So it's an interesting metaphor for interacting with life. Typically we think, I'll become spiritual and withdraw from the world. Or I'll become material and just focus on gaining wealth. So then I pursue in the world. No, we don't run away from the world, nor do we get lost in pursuits like that. What do? You have to be taking a nuanced, reflective way. It's like the middle path. So kushala means it's possible to still pick the grass, but not get your fingers hurt. Meaning it's possible to engage in dialogue with somebody or debate or interact at the workplace, but have a certain attitude or disposition that this is for my growth, or this is my offering to Ishvara. It's a special mode of mind. That's karma yoga. Kaushalam. Pramatitavyam. Keep that alive. Don't deviate from it. Then also, so important, bhutyena pramatitavyam. Don't neglect your material well-being or flourish. So we need to hear this periodically as Hindus, because sometimes we have this very strange notion about the spiritual path with the sannyasi or renunciate, where you're just living in rags in the burial ground. But Upanishad didn't really talk like that. Bhutyena pramatitavyam. You should flourish. Nothing wrong with that. That's an important message. Bhutyena pramatitavyam. Maybe that's not your calling. Maybe you want to just live a very simple life. Nothing wrong with that. But from my own personal experience, yeah, you can think about it that way too. From my own personal experience is that when you live minimally and you share good things and you're inspired by what you're doing, then things will collect around you. Good things will collect. So you'll meet the right people, you'll be supported, and you'll flourish. Bhutyena pramatitavyam. And then also swadhyaya, self-reflection, and pravachanam, sharing what you learn. Na pramatitavyam. Don't deviate from that. So these are the final teachings, what the guru prescribes. Anushasti. Now, one thing I just want to highlight a little bit here that's interesting to think about is when the guru here says dharmam chara, always follow your dharma. Or it's also said dharma na pramatitavyam, don't deviate from dharma. Dharma is a really core concept in Hinduism, which we're seeing has its roots in this Upanishad, these Upanishads. So just a kind of brief overview, when you may be asking yourself, what is my dharma? Or how do we follow dharma? Dharmam chara. The supreme dharma that is accepted amongst all religions is ahimsa.
Ahimsa.
Yes. So what is my dharma? Nonviolence, meaning engaging in a loving relationship or an inclusive relationship with all beings. I would say that that's ahimsa. How
Right.
can I include more? How can I include others in my life or other creatures? You can take that so far. I mean, even just with your eyes, is it possible to gaze at the other in a way where you're not trying to reach out or control, but have that wide open space and just allow them to come to you? That's another way you practice ahimsa. I had a good friend who could do that, and just by a look, things get drawn in. So that look can really change a lot. So much of our eyes or our sense of sight is dominating the other. It's a subtle form of control. So that's one idea of dharma, nonviolence. Another idea of dharma is called varnashrama, based upon your guna analysis. Some of us may be more reflective and studious. Some may be more active. There's different kinds of, that's kind of, you have to try and kind of trial and error, experiment with what it is that you feel that you are good at. And then also that your age also factors into that a lot. So given your age and given your kind of disposition, that also determines what you should do, dharma. Another thing is called raja dharma. Raja dharma. That means what how you're situating yourself in the society, in the social context. That also influences our action. These are different circles kind of going out, thinking about how we act. What is our calling? And then lastly, you should take care of yourself. Apat dharma. Apat means here that self-nourishing. Like Sarve was saying with Boutier, one thing is that your body demands some things. So you have to listen to that. For example, you need fresh air, you need water, forest, and proper rest, good food. That's your dharma.
Proper sleep.
There's nothing wrong. I mean, think about your day. What are you prioritizing? So sometimes we get so much caught up in other pursuits, we forgot to prioritize our apat dharma, which means, did I make a good meal today? Did I get good rest? Did I remember to stay with my breath? These are essential to our life. So that's called apat dharma. So if you feel confused, I don't know what my calling is, just get a good night's sleep. Stay with your breath. Make a healthy meal. And then learn to include. That's so simple. And you feel so fresh after practicing like that. So dharma. Then that gives you the ability to try and experiment and find your calling, what it is that you care about most. Satyam vada, dharmam chara, swadhyaya anma pramadaha. So, acharya priyam dhanamahritya prajantam tumma vyavachetsi. Those four things: truth, your calling, self-reflection, then giving back. Keep the flow. This is what the Guru prescribes. Now, we'll chant this next mantra. We're coming to a close with our time, but the Guru further emphasizes about keeping the flow of energy alive in our relationships. So this next mantra talks about, it's very celebrated mantra. Many of you may be knowing this. Here, this is about how to have that. We talked about manusham, your humaneness. Here, it's talking about what that's like. Let's chant it together. I'll chant first. How to have a respectful relationship. Deva pitra karyabhyam na pramatitavyam matra devo bhava pitra devo bhava acharya devo bhava atithi devo bhava. So you can repeat after me. Deva
Deva,
Pitra,
Pitra,
Karyabhyam,
Karyabhyam,
Na,
Na
Na,
Pramatitavyam,
Pramaditavyam
Pramaditavyam,
Matra Devo Bhava,
Matrudevo
Devo
Bhava
Bhava,
Pitra Devo Bhava,
Pitrudevo
Devo
Bhava
Bhava,
Acharya Devo Bhava,
Acharya
Acharya
Devo
Devo
Bhava
Bhava,
Atithi Devo Bhava.
Atiti
Atidhi
Devo
Devo
Bhava.
Bhava.
So here, the first word that you see is Deva.
Mhm,
Here, Deva means Deva can mean the departed souls or
mhm,
your gods,
mhm,
deities that you worship. Pitra
mhm,
here means the mains, parents.
mhm.
You can think of 4 generations,
Right.
parents. Deva Pitra Karyabhyam. Your attitude towards them. Um, Na pramatitavyam. Don't swerve from this kind of attitude. What is that
Mhm.
attitude? This is so beautiful. Matra Devo Bhava. You see your mother as
As
God.
God.
Matra Devo Bhava. Matra means mother.
Mother.
You see her as Deva, a luminous being. Pitra Devo Bhava. Pitra, your
Father.
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 See them as a God. Acharya Devo Bhava. Your teacher,
Guru.
God.
Mhm,
Treat the teacher as a God.
mhm.
Then, lastly, Atiti Devo Bhava. Guests
Just.
become your God.
Mhm,
That's really powerful. So, when some person or some animal shows up unexpectedly, you don't shoo them out or feel, oh, they're interrupting me. What would happen, or how would that transformation within oneself and in the relationship change if you saw, oh, God has arrived at my front door?
mhm, mhm,
It can totally change everything as an opportunity. Atiti Devo Bhava. This you are forced to practice this in an ashram environment. You never know when somebody comes, and uh, there's nothing that keeps anybody from coming and visiting. So everything is open here. Atiti Devo Bhava. So it's a little difficult in Western culture to think about
mhm,
that. You
mhm.
live in some cul-de-sac and you hardly know your neighbor. And
Right.
then you don't ever, visit each other's homes. But
Mhm,
you can still think about this in your workplace or when you're going to the grocery or whatnot, the people that you meet who you don't have blood relationship to, see them as God. Titi Devo Bhava. So respect mother, father,
mhm.
teacher, and God. This is
Yes.
typically
Yes.
what when we do those mantras at the beginning, a lot of times before undertaking anything auspicious or
Mhm,
before class, a lot of times we honor the teacher. Then we also honor our parents. Um, so that's really important. The other thing too is it also indicates that our parents at some time made mistake being a human being. So as a mature adult, we all have to come to a certain stage where we have an acceptance towards that. That's a
mhm,
big leap in spiritual life. That I recognize that they have fallibility, that they also are using a mind which is an instrument subject to disturbed, distracted uh, tendencies. So to give them permission to be who they are, who they were, and the things that they said that hurt us, to accommodate that, give them grace and say they must have been doing the best they could given their situation, their
mhm,
emotional complex, their um, their tendencies, the way that they were trained, what was
mhm,
pushed on them. So to just be able to say, uh, I accept that is
mhm,
huge leap forward in freeing up our mental space.
mhm,
That's indicated here. You don't have to
mhm,
say, I want to follow exactly in my mother's footsteps to love her. You can always keep her in your heart, whether she's here or not, whether you appreciated everything she said or not.
mhm,
That love can still remain. So to be able to cut through some of those painful tendencies and just appreciate that she brought you here in this
mhm.
world, That's called seeing her as a deva, Mata
Mhm.
Devo Bhava.
Mhm.
Similarly with the father, Pitra Devo Bhava.
Mhm.
So how wonderful is that attitude? It really frees up our mind a lot.
Mhm.
Acharya Devo Bhava. And then with the teacher, see, the parents give you the physical birth. That way, sometimes I feel that when we celebrate our birthday, actually we should just be celebrating our parents' physical
Mhm.
birth.
Mhm.
Then the Acharya gives you the cultural birth, the
Mhm.
birth into this wisdom that you are so much more. You're the spirit. So that's why we honor both. And then that gives us the ability to really welcome all into our life. Atiti, no matter when they come. Atiti Devo Bhava. All right. So a lot of good things discussed in Upanishad. We saw mantra,
Mhm.
aham. Reflect on that aham.
Right.
Reflect
Right.
on that statement, I am. And then before you jump into a conclusion, just stay with that. Enjoy your own being.
Mhm.
That's how you start your day or close your day. You know, we're all getting ready maybe to take rest, or maybe you stay up a little later and read something good or practice. Maybe before you lay your head, just set your attention and your heart for a moment and just let that statement arise. I am. That's enough. You don't have to do anything to
Mhm.
reach that effortless state. That's why sometimes they call it sahaja samadhi,
Mhm.
a samadhi that doesn't require any effort. Because when you reflect on I am, that's always there. It's like a waveless ocean.
Mhm.
I am. And then we also saw this convocation address,
Mhm.
those supreme values and their
Mhm.
expression, and then really bringing that into respectful relationships with our parents, teacher,
Mhm.
and guest.
Mhm.
So, a few more other keen insights given by the Guru in our next class, and we may even finish this first book um,
Next.
next week. So, we're going to see about how it's best to not highlight defects of other people, but try to see, what is their best qualities. That's talked about. Then also you'll meet a lot of people in your life who are much more successful or
Mhm.
perceived as better than you.
Mhm.
So Upanishad also says, hey, you don't have to feel jealous. Here's the attitude you should develop. You should listen and learn the best from them. And then it will conclude too with a philosophy of giving. We were told earlier too, it's nice to create that flow of giving and receiving. So what is the attitudes that we should have when we give? That will also be discussed all next week. Let us close with a prayer.
Om
Purnamadav Purnamidam
Purnamidam
Purnam
Purnat Purnamudachyate
Purnamudachyate Purnasya
Purnasya
Purnamadaya
Purnamaya
Purnamevavashishyate.
Purnameshishyate
Om
Om
Shanti
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 Shanti.
Shantihi
Hari
Hari
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari
Hari
Om. Hari Om.
Namaste Hari Om.
Namaste. Thank you all for gathering and giving me a chance to share Upanishad, which I love so much. It means a lot to just have the group to be able to do that. It's really special. And I wish you a great rest of the night.
Thank
Namaste.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.